What's up, everybody? It's Sound Booth Leader Lifetime. Sorry for getting started late. Had a little computer crash, but it's all good now. My computer is running, as you can see. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Today we have an interesting show. Well, I don't know how much more interesting it is than other requests only, but the goal is always to make it interesting, I think. And that's why I put up the polls to see what you guys want to hear. So let's see. Let's take a look at our poll one more time. Oh man, it's a hot day. I had to run out and get some asparagus. You know how it gets when it's asparagus time. Okay, so our three requests today are Login Accepted, a LitRPG novel, Incipere Online, Incipere Online, Book 1 by R.J. Triveri. We have Dungeon Boss Player. Well, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Why don't I look this stuff up on Amazon, show you guys that it's available? Login accepted. There we go. And don't get scared. I'm just gonna have to do a screen share real quick, and it just because it's little thing. So all right. So login accepted. Here is the cover. It is on Kindle. It is available for $5 on Kindle or through Kindle Unlimited. I'll read the synopsis here. In 2049, the singularity has emerged from the depths of the internet, and the world is better for it. Earth has entered a golden age of technology, and man and artificial intelligence share the world in peace. For those that aren't satisfied with the physical humdrum of Earth, the singularity's people eagerly welcome humans into their home of Incipere. 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 But new golden age or not, the world keeps on turning as it always has, and it still isn't always datum and daisies. Just ask Athos Aramis. After being mugged, stabbed, and left with a critical spinal injury, Athos's last option is to trade one machine-supported life for another and let his mind be downloaded into the world of Incipere. Thanks, in part, to some outdated guidebooks, his journey is less than ideal, and as the newest alchemist of Incipere, Athos must learn to survive as he goes. His biggest lesson? Incipere and its denizens shouldn't be taken lightly. So that's a cool little synopsis. Sounds like he plays an alchemist in this book. I always like interesting main character roles. So this ought to be fun. All right, where are we at? Let's make sure this is muted. No one's in the chat yet. Okay. Then, sorry. Now I have to look up what else we're doing. We are doing Dungeon Boss Player: The Beginning by Paul Estofel. Dungeon Boss Player. Right off the bat, we gotta. This is like a. I mean, this isn't a real cover, right? Like he found that picture. Maybe this is like a default cover. Not so excited about that. Let's see what the synopsis says. In the near future, gaming changed quickly, and now a real virtual reality was. And games soon appeared, and one of the newest was Dungeon King World, a game where the player is a dungeon boss and has the full control all over the dungeon domain of how to make it grow and how it will interact with the outside world. Inside a dungeon, the boss is the king or queen, and the monsters inside will follow their command without questioning it. Okay, so I'm getting a English as a second language vibe already, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna suck. It just might be kind of funny. It may suck. I don't know. You guys have requested things that suck before, so we'll see. I mean, the customer reviews, 10 reviews, 3 stars in total. Ramon doesn't like it so much. We'll see. We'll see. And then our third request is from Charles Dean, his Goof Story yet again, which I'm excited to read. That's going to be at the end so that we make sure that has as much time as possible. And so here we go. I'm going to start off with the where'd it go? I'm going to start off with Login Accepted by RJ Triveri. I wonder, did he get my message? I wonder if he'll be able to hang out with us today. Triveri, Robert, your title was requested. No, he's not noticed that I sent that to him, so I'll go ahead and send him the link anyway. Ah! And let's see here. Where is my sharing link? Here it is. And I'll send one to Charles because I'm sure he'll want to hang out with us later. That one Charles dude, Charles Dean. And oh wow, we're getting more people just joining the Facebook group right now. Hopefully they're gonna see the video and start jumping in. Are you guys alive out there? Richard Lietzau, Endless Windows. That's correct. That's why I get scared. Thanks for coming, Richard. For everybody who's here, if you haven't said anything in the chat yet, it's fine. Hi, Roman. I am giving away audiobook codes. I'm going to give away 5 today. So if you want a free audiobook, say something in the chat about it, request it. Let's see. Our latest audiobooks are Feedback Loop 4, Reapers and Repercussions. That one I highly recommend. Go pick that up. Well, you know what? I highly recommend anything that Sound Booth Theater sells. But before that, our last haha something that's not good enough, man. You know that. The book before that was Gunmeister Online by Noah Barnett, and that one was narrated by Miss Annie Ellicott, her very first audiobook, full audiobook. I mean, she's done a lot of character work with us before, but she absolutely blew this one out of the water. She killed it for her first audiobook, and it's 14 hours long. She worked so hard for this. I'm very proud of her, and if you go look at the ratings on Gunmeister Online, you'll see that she's maintained a 4.9 performance rating throughout. I don't know. It looks like more than 250 ratings by now. So yeah, go check it out, or request it. Say I want Gunmeister for free in the chat if you haven't listened to it yet. Let's see. Before that, geez, what was it? Otherworldly Powers, Dungeon Lord 2 had just come out. So I mean, guys, just go search my name, Jeff Hayes, Hays, in Audible, and you will see all of our newest releases. You will see that there's plenty of things to choose from. So if you want a free audiobook, say so in the chat, and I will find you. I will find you, and I will give you a code. So moving on. I have to find this this first request, which was I have to keep reminding myself. Login accepted. Login accepted. Yeah, see, I have a feeling this is a really old request because I'm not seeing the actual PDF in my email yet. Let's see what we can do here. No, don't talk to me. No. Come on now. iPad, stop acting like an idiot. Okay, there we go. Try again. Login accepted. Here we go. Here we go. Good morning, Dan and crew. Okay, so chapter titles, no special tones required. Narrator, no special tones required. Digital system messages, informative and unbiased by nature, states things as they are and factually, a bit mechanical, but could be mistaken as human or someone imitating a human. Athos Aramis, a young adult male, mostly atypical, the voice of a student, a learner, someone gaining confidence day by day in himself as he determines his own fate. At this point of the novel, he is testing the boundaries of his abilities. NECA, young male feline. The voice is a bit higher in tone and almost childlike. Voice was designed to be trustworthy and overall helpful. Splendor Solus, book expert, sage-like, elderly, wise. The voice is meant to be listened to as a student does a beloved teacher. Lily, an almost mechanical in its approach, but female-sounding fairy. Hard to ignore by design, so higher pitched than average. Think Navi from Legend of Zelda. Okay, I don't remember what Navi sounds like from Legend of Zelda, but I already have a fairy voice. I think we'll be fine with that. And let's get to this. Oh, Durzo and Omnirain want. I don't know. Durzo wants a code. I'm not sure if Omnirain is requesting a code or not. He's just saying Cherry Blossom Girls, which I appreciate because that book is awesome. Book 2 is coming out very soon, by the way. So I'm going to run and get something to drink, and I'll be right back to start login accepted. My drink. Where's my glasses? Here they are. And here we go. How many people we got? We got 6 people watching. If you guys could please go get more people, I would very much appreciate. James Lee wants an audible code, so that's 2 out of 5 gone. Y'all got friends who like audiobooks? Get them in here. Tell them to request a code. All right. This is Login Accepted by R.J. Triveri. Depths and Flame. The door nearly matched the size of the building itself as Athos approached it. The material didn't seem any different, but the polish on it was much more noticeable, like if someone put raw marble next to its polished product. The biggest shock was what was beyond the portal. The entire room was a display of Incipere's unique digital world. Beyond the entrance, the inside was larger than the outside and looked like it could have fit at least 5 of the smaller buildings it was housed in inside of itself. Excuse me. That's Navi. Navi? What's Navi? I don't understand. I don't know what you're saying. I'm scared. Okay, yeah, Omni Rain wants one. So that's 3 out of 5. The entire room was a Okay. Not wanting to linger around outside, he chalked it up to game logic, went beyond the door, and into the dungeon. As soon as his feet moved beyond the door, sorry about that little pause, I was just looking at the chat and I don't understand what's going on. As soon as his feet moved beyond the door, the lights began to dim into a somber, soft darkness. Almost without him noticing, the walls that made up the sides of the door melded together as if the portal had never existed. A moment later, soft, flickering blue torches sprung to life, but added little additional light as they crackled in the silence that accompanied the alchemist's breathing. He expected the worst to come, but nothing did. Whatever creatures called this place their home, they must have been deeper in, with only one staircase at the end of the room to follow. It didn't take a genius to decide where to go next. Gathering himself up, he opened his window and checked the map, though words would only blink softly in response to him. Mapping disabled within dungeons. Manual mapping suggested. Well, he thought to himself, what else could I have expected today? What else could I have expected today? Looking through his supplies, he was ready for pretty much anything. At least, He felt he was looking at the molten-looking bottles of his pyrotheums. At least, he felt he was looking at the molten-looking bottles of his pyrotheums sitting in their inventory slots. The book had said that there were 10 uses in each bottle that could be used to start campfires. A grin spread across his face as he looked over the lids, sealed with melted wax. He had bigger plans for them. Pressing on their icon, he tried to equip them to his main hand, but a new message appeared instead. Combat situation detected. Primary weapon equipment suggested. Flintlock. Flintlock? Outlined in green was the very pistol he had been given by the man who had just strong-armed him. Not that he had used the gun before, but he wasn't ready to try it now. Pressing the bottles of pyrotheum again, the same message appeared. Combat situation detected. Primary weapon equipment suggested. Flintlock. As his frustrations grew, his inner monologue grew beyond what he could hold within his coated skull. I don't want a gun! I have a plan! Combat situation detected. Primary weapon equipment suggested. Flintlock. Damn game logic. In an attempt at appeasing the powers that be, he pressed against the weapon's icon, and after a soft ping sounded in his ear, his flintlock materialized in a holster on his hip opposite his bag under his coat. The added weight didn't seem to bother him as much as the weapon itself did. As if it had instantly become second nature, he armed himself proper and studied the silvery appearance into the brushed copper, or was it brass, inlay that ran throughout the instrument. As he moved with it, the tool seemed to have only enough weight to alert him to its existence in his hand. Pointing it ahead, he took a deep breath and put it away. He wasn't a gunner. Pressing the pyrotheum symbol again, the vial of liquid materialized into his hand as easily as it had at the inn, and, in Athos's honest opinion, it was about time. It was about damn time. A stockpile of these, in theory, would be all that he needed to get the job done. In another motion, he made the screen vanish and was left with the simple torchlight of the dungeon and the glowing, digital essence of the vial in his hand. According to everything he had tested, it should work. Well, here goes everything. Raising the vial in his hand like a torch, Athos began to trek forward into the depth of the dungeon. His vial, the torches, and the light that streamed from above the staircase seemed to weaken more and more with each step until the darkness drowned out all other forms of light. In his sphere of illumination, Athos watched each step he took with increasing detail. The dry, almost summer air of the outside cooled the dry, almost summer air of the outside cooled the deeper he went down the staircase. Even with the programming of the area keeping the walls of the dungeon stable, water dripped from between the cracked stones into small puddles more and more commonly as the chill deepened and the air clung to him like a winter's sweater. It seemed to Athos that reaching the bottom was almost as much of a task of survival as the dungeon. Twice on the way down, he had almost shattered the vial against the wall to regain his balance. Knowing that he could feel pain, he didn't want to know what it felt like to burn alive. Those first steps onto the floor of the next level made him all the more thankful he hadn't fallen. Not 3 steps into the room, a brazier at least 3 feet long and just as wide was left burning to give off its otherworldly crimson glow. Not that it did much, but it was enough to throw the colors of fire just far enough to see a pair of cat-like eyes staring back at him. Richard Lietzau asks, is the Feedback Loop series worth it? Yes, it's super worth it, man. Are you kidding? It's like one of my favorites. I narrate as Quantum Hughes. It's the best. There are at the ring of the shadows and light a figure. There, at the ring of shadows and light, a figure loomed, snarling and circling slowly around the perimeter where the light was weakest. Without much of a body to speak of, the eyes seemed to twist and turn in a creature made of liquid shadow. Wait, what are they called again? As if on cue, his small, armored feline reappeared and spoke in a practiced tone, almost serious unless Athos was mistaken. Master Athos, this is a shadow spawn. It's a rank 2, stealth, melee class creature. It is normally extremely hostile towards non-shadow creature classed entities. Beware if they start to gather. Thanks, NECA, he said, staying within the circle of light holding it at bay. I don't think Oxy ever got around to explaining what it was. 1 second, let me look back. NECA, young male feline. What? So what? Why is he saying thanks to NECA? Okay. Oh, derp. Okay, so, all right, NECA. I get it. The black, it's not consistent. Bit higher in tone, almost childlike. Voice was designed to be trustworthy and overall helpful. Okay, let me try that again. Master Athos, this is a shadow spawn. It's a rank 2 stealth melee class creature. It is normally extremely hostile towards non-shadow creature classed entities. Beware if they start together. Thanks, NECA, he said within the circle of light holding it at bay. I don't think Oxy ever got around to explaining what it was. At that, oh, Richard Lietzau, go check. There's a box set of books 1 through 3 of the feedback loop. If you're worried about spending a credit on something short, the first 3 books are all for 1 credit. So go check that out. At that, NECA bowed respectably and gave him his unusually formal salute. Good luck, Athos. With those words, he was gone as quickly as he came, leaving Athos a little better off than he had been. Shadow spawns were the first thing he had encountered in Incipere, and he did owe them a little payback for almost ending things before they began. 30, 30 pyrotheum and 30 soul arum, so 60 good strikes before he had to turn to the gun. Not the worst odds in Athos's opinion. After crossing his fingers, Athos positioned himself directly across from the shadow spawn and grinned. The glow of the red vial blending with the light almost perfectly as the creature watched him, the snarling seemed to vanish as it caught wind of its prey's plans. A grin grew on his face as the sensation of whatever substituted for adrenaline here coursed through his avatar's form, and he pitched the vial directly at the creature's face. His excitement came into a crashing decrescendo, though, once the spawn melded itself around the vial and harmlessly released it back onto the blah, blah. His excitement came into a crashing decrescendo, though, once the spawn melded itself around the vial and harmlessly released it back onto the floor. I think it's decrescendo, actually. Yeah. Bastard! The shadow spawn's snicker sounded like nails on a chalkboard as it rolled the vial behind itself towards the furthest wall with a steady, crystalline clinking as it traveled. The spawn was smarter than it looked. Athos wasn't defeated, though, despite the slow progress it tried to make into the light. Okay, so he couldn't throw it at the creature. The liquid shadow was a little truer to form than he had thought. Well, hoped anyways. Another vial was already in hand as he took aim again, throwing in front of it this time. Thinking that Athos was attempting the same strategy, it simply stopped and stood there as its drunken firefly cat's eyes reflected the red flickers of the fire's glow. For Athos, that moment was too long. The cracking of glass made his heart leap, but a moment later it was as if the sun had set its gaze upon the dungeon's chamber. The darkness was eradicated in an instant as fire and flame leapt from the bottle across the floor, consuming anything it could as fuel in a 2-foot radius. The piercing scream that follows deafened him, but confirmed that the spawn wasn't quite the liquid he thought it was. The all-consuming fire devoured the shadow spawn's integrity in a matter of moments. Bit by bit, Athos's vision returned to what the darkness had accustomed him to. and he could gaze on the sludge pile that was left of the creature. Well, that wasn't so bad, he thought to himself as he took a few steps forward. All had gone according to plan, except for one thing. How could he have planned for it? The smell of the burning shadow spawn's remains was like ozone, and sulfur had an unholy child that enjoyed eating far too much spicy food. It didn't look it didn't look too far off from that either. It didn't look too far off from that either, as the tendrils of its reeking scent assaulted every susceptible opening. In other words, it was completely, utterly disgusting. Thankfully, after taking another step closer, his gauntlet pinged softly in his ear to signal the presence of a crafting material, and the remains disappeared into his gauntlet's inventory. Breathing a sigh of relief was much easier after that, but the path was still just as dangerous before him. Two ways to travel, but there were no other sources of light to be seen. Walking out of the light, he picked up his rogue vial of pyrotheum before retreating to its soft, warm glow to think. The soft drip of some unseen water began to the, dr- the soft drip of some unseen water began to grind on him as his thoughts wandered. The soft drip of some unseen water began to grind on him as his thoughts wandered to what might lay beyond. All he was sure of was that either way he was going to encounter those things. Then again, the more he encountered, the faster his rank would increase. So did it really matter? It was times like this that he wished coin flipping was a thing in Incipere. Suddenly, an idea sparked at the back of his mind as he remembered one of the Splendor Solace spells he had access to. A smile spread on his face as the spirit of adventure began to take hold again as he pulled out a vial of his soul arum and uncorked it. Why, guess when you can get advice. The Eclipsed Arum Pact. Young alchemist. Sorry, that's supposed to be your computer. Okay. The Eclipsed Arum Pact. Young alchemist, there are many ways to fix a problem. Whether it is a broken tool, dented armor, or something more abstract, there is always a way around a problem. That is, there is a way for those that are willing to pay the price when your time of need for such. Oh, there is a way to pay. There is a way for those that are willing to pay the price. When your time of need for such a thing arises and you can see no other way, follow these directions to enact the Eclipsed Arum Pact. Be warned, the price may be more than you are willing to accept. Excerpt from page 6 of Splendor Solace, the Book of the Sacred Mage. Soul arum was a vicious liquid that, after a short while, would form what could pass as a gel of soft starlight that could and would stick to any surface until the reaction time was spent. Carefully, Athos began to pour the contents of the vial onto the floor as his memory dictated. First, a large pool of it First, a large pool of it oozed from the center until it was perfectly even on all sides. Around it, he dripped the contents out carefully and smoothed it into 24 even slats that fed into the large circle. As that bottle was spent, he pulled out a vial of darkness, obscurus arum. Uncapping it, the light seemed to die just a bit as the shadows leaked from the uncorked bottle. This he poured all around the symbol, filling the edges like a moon's shadow. Carefully, he began to paint the last image in the center, an inverted triangle with ragged edges. It was like some beautiful dance as the liquid light was darkened by the shadows, but then raged back like wisps of black fire when the edges met. He couldn't get distracted now, though. With the final drops, he drew a crescent moon on his right hand and began to speak the words that sealed the final steps of the pact. Ah, chaîne de la lumière, j'ai demandé conseil sur ma couette. Je suis dans une impasse et ont besoin d'aide. Envoyez-moi les moyens de repérer mon problème. Okay, so that's French, obviously. I don't know how to read French. I did my best. To him, the words meant little. It was simply a language he didn't understand, but that, according to the book, was from the language of one of one of alchemy's most powerful masters. The words were not his own, but carried with it a simple message to whatever digital deity awaited beyond the veil of code. He wanted guidance to fix his issue. Athos couldn't afford to get trapped, or worse. He needed to know what was best. His vision blurred as the light and the darkness seemed to fight against each other in licks of flaring shadow and light. Athos looked around nervously as the lights spread down the halls, lighting each path down to their turn until both arums dissolved into each other. For a moment, the young alchemist looked around, having expected something to happen, and as if not to disappoint, a small ball of light with wings fluttered into existence at his eye level, almost against his nose, as it spoke in a quiet voice. "Ah!"
Greetings, Athos.
He wasn't quite sure what was going to happen when he enacted the pact, but a floating ball of light was not near the top of the list. But a floating ball of light was not near the top of the list. Um, hello?
I am Lily, packed beast of the eclipse, and I have come to aid you.
When he didn't answer right away, the fairy-like creature continued.
To be aided, to be aided, a price must be paid.
The book had warned him of a price, but it was never really that specific about it. What sort of price do I have to pay? The packed beast bobbed back and forth before stopping. Despite its lack of eyes, he felt as though it was sizing him up, evaluating him for his worth before answering.
Though you do not have much, you have your health. A small portion of your health for my guidance on your quest will be sufficient.
Athos grew leery at those words and glanced at his integrity. How much is a small portion?
1/5 of your life to be your guide for however long it shall be until the end of your need.
The voice was soft as falling snow. The voice was soft as falling snow, but sharp as crystal as the soft words seemed to echo in his ears.
It is a small price for reliable direction, is it not?
94% was steady at the top of his vision. It would still leave him with quite a bit of his data intact, but would that be enough? There was still a boss coming that he knew of, and at least a few more of those things. Maybe he could sweeten the deal and make it more worth the effort. Will you guide me to the treasure, too? It bobbed again before starting to lazily circle him.
If you wish, but it will be more dangerous. Do you agree to my terms, Alchemist Athos?
After a moment's hesitation more, he nodded. It could be worse terms, I guess. But I accept. Before the words could even escape his mouth, it felt as though someone had cut into him again. Not the sudden manic stab of a desperate man, but the slow, methodical cutting of practiced surgeon that had run out of anesthesia. Each moment the pain grew as his data d- Each moment the pain grew as his data integrity dropped. It felt like hours, but only a minute had passed before his integrity read 74. His breathing deepened as he recovered from the shock of the payment and looked at the small ball of light.
That hurt! That hurt! Payment must be rendered.
You didn't say it would hurt.
You did not ask.
A growing a growling echoed down one of the halls as Athos stopped short. Burka burka burr. A growling echoed down one of the halls as Athos stopped short of what he wanted to say. Instead, he looked at the packed beast and thought quickly as the sounds of scratching grew. How large is this dungeon?
3 floors. The entrance level, the travel level, and the lower chamber.
Can you lead me to any of the treasure chests with something I can use? It didn't take the beast long to answer with another question.
Do you want to encounter the Dark Monitor?
The scratching against the bricked stone floor grew louder. No. A moment of hesitation followed as the packed beast broke its orbit and began floating towards the left passage.
Follow me, please.
The scratching grew louder as Athos followed behind Lily without another word. The left passage was just as dark as the trip into the travel level, but much more dangerous. Despite the guidance of Lily, shadow spawn still littered the passage towards the next area. With just a few vials of pyrotheum, they weren't much of a challenge. But the smell. Even with the short time before the purple stone on his gauntlet absorbed them, that stench was almost enough to run him out. Excuse me. It got to the point where he kept an eye on his data integrity and feared that the stench might poison him. Through a smell best described as burning hair and over-ripened fish, Athos was surprised that when the smoke cleared this time, there was nothing but a dead end. Lily simply floated as she did before, bobbing towards the wall. Lily simply floated as she did before, bobbing towards the wall.
I must warn you, this is the only safe cache in the dungeon. The other is guarded by the monitor.
The other? Without missing a beat, she simply added,
The treasure room is meant for larger groups since they can share the take, but this is statistically the best for a single party due to its small find ratio.
he thought about asking her where it was, but if this world had taught him anything about the way it worked. It's behind the wall, isn't it?
Yes.
Do I have to blow it up? That would be a chore in itself, not to mention the cost of the materials and the sheer volume of the sound he would have to make. The question seemed a bit more than the beast had expected.
That would be very pointless and cause a constant need for repairs. What purpose would a small room covered in a wall that has to be blown up repeatedly only for the sake of hiding a single treasure do in the long run for the dungeon?
Embarrassment flooded his face as he answered, Sorry. It's just that it's usually the way things work in a game. Sorry, it's just that it's usually the way things work in a game.
This world may have been built on a game's design, but there are other ways to solve problems than with violence.
And with that, the packed beast flew through the wall.
It is an illusion, Athos.
Part of him was a little disappointed in that he Part of him was a little disappointed in that, as he tentatively put his hand on the surface, sure enough, it offered no resistance as the rest of him traveled through into a room no larger than 6 feet by 6 feet deep. There in the center of the room was his prize, a chest that took up nearly the entire back of the room, large enough to hold a man and deep enough it was everything he could have hoped for. What? Large enough to hold a man and deep enough for a second. It was everything he could have hoped for. Jackpot!
No, Athos. It's a chest.
All right. So that is login accepted. I don't know how I feel about that one. It's kind of hmm. There's a bit of a mystery to it, and it feels okay. I think the writing needs to be tightened up a bit, but I don't know. It may be a good start. Encountering the fairy is kind of like um, it's kind of uh, it's a trope that's used a lot now, especially for dungeon stories. So I'm not sure how I feel about that, but yeah, it is what it is. So if you guys liked that, if you guys liked what I read of it, go check it out on Amazon. It is available. It's been available for a little while now. I think at least a month. Let's see. Yeah, it came out April 20th, so a couple months. It's got 3.5 stars. It's doing okay. So if you liked it, go check it out. 357 pages and kind of an interesting cover. I like the alchemy angle again, but I don't think we did much of that in that little read through. So thank you, RJ Triveri, for requesting login accepted. I hope you enjoyed that read, and we will move on to the next. Excuse me. All right, so next is. Uh, 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 uh. It is Dungeon Boss Player, the one with the Questionable cover. Eman to Manny. What's up, Eman to Manny? Thanks for joining. How wait a minute. One, I think we have 3 of the 5 audiobooks given away so far, so we have 2 more that can be, requested, so if you want a free audiobook, tell me which audiobook you want, or just tell me that you want a free audiobook in the chat somewhere. We got 2 left. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out. We're gonna start our next request. Alright, get rid of that. Uh, uh, uh. Clay Griggs, R.O. Warden. Okay, I know I saw this one earlier. I know I saw it. Dead Rogue. Amazing Cleavage. Dungeon Boss Player. Here it is. Alright. Okay, so we have a little bit of direction here. Isis. She does whatever she wants in her own time since she is the AI of the game and is known as the goddess of life. Her voice can be a bit childish, but her tone of voices changes to business mode when she is being seriously. But it doesn't stop to look a bit childish. Okay. Kai. He is a more serious character, at least that is how he is planning to make his character to look like. His voice is a bit beast-like and guttural since he wants to make the NPCs fear him when he talks, but he is a softy on the inside and thinks carefully before acting. All right. So here goes. This is Dungeon Boss Player The Beginning by Paul Estofel. Your name is displayed, as well as the type of dungeon you are. Next is your level and the level of that your minions can have. You get experience points by doing dungeon stuff like setting spawning points, traps, resources nods, killing things, and making the dungeon grow. The minions' level range is always set to a start at level 1, and their max level is the same as you. Their boss, Isis said with a smile. So, to level up, I just need to be a dungeon. Paul, Kai, asked to the girl before him. Summarizing it, yes, just be a dungeon, she said with a nod. Next is your dungeon points, or DP. They are the points you use to upgrade the dungeon or to use dungeon skill, which are explained in the end, so just read over it, she said, a bit annoyed with the details. Wait, upgrade the dungeon? So I can set it by using nothing more than the minions, then I use the points later on to set other things? Kai asked, tilting his head. Yes and no. Your minions will follow your command since you're the boss, but now you don't have that time, Isis said with a smile. You see, you only have 15 in-game days to set your dungeon before it is forcefully opened by the great me, meaning that you will only have 15 days to set the first room and maybe second room, she explained, and Kai nodded. From here forwards is the explanation about the number. Rooms are the number of rooms you have in your dungeon. Floors are not counted, since all the dungeons only have the first floor. For now, Isis said, and Kai nodded his wolfish head. Then we have the number of minions. This is the total of minions your dungeon has. It will increase as the dungeon grows. Death and kill is easy. Death is the number of deaths your boss had, and kill is the number of outsiders that died inside your dungeon. It goes without saying that animals that aren't from your main race count as well, even if they are born inside the dungeon, she said, as she tapped on a blackboard that appeared out of thin air. Durzo Thorn says, anyone else curious on how well the entire cast of Sound Booth would do on a remake of Ready Player One? That's a good question, Durzo. I think you should ask that question in lots of other places besides this chat. What do you guys think? I think it's a good idea. So for now, I can only call for 5 minions, and they will be all level 1, just like me. Kai said, and the girl nodded before giving the big dog a treat. Hey, I'm not a dog, he said to the smiling girl.
Next, we have the minion races. This show all the races you have, and the boss can be changed into one as well. And most of the time, the boss is from one of the strongest races, Isis said before sighing and stretching her body. The explanation is over.
Wait, how do I gather DP? Kai asked after the girl talked that.
What? Sorry, I forgot about that,
Isis said as she placed her tongue at the side of her mouth before making a small punch at the side of her head.
You can gather DP by killing or trapping enemies inside your dungeon, or your minions finding and giving to you a box with these DP.
All right, Richard Lietzau gets the 4th book. We got one more book left to request, guys.
These are a variety of these boxes, so just look for them, she said, and walked towards the mountain. This is where your dungeon will be placed. Be ready, because now you will be doing what I say.
Oh, okay.
This is where your dungeon will be placed. Be ready, because now you will be doing what I say, she said seriously.
Okay, I'll follow you, since this is the tutorial and I'll learn what to do, Kai answered as he walked towards the goddess just to stop at her side as a giant red X was placed in the rock. What kind of sick joke is this? He asked the girl.
You see, this is a way to show where you should put your core against, so just place your head on the X, Isis said, waving her hand. This way you will form a small pocket dimension. All dungeons are like that. They are their own world, she said to the dog. Kai nodded and pressed the red stone on his forehead at the X, and soon he felt a small string linking to the stone on his head. This is the place now. This is the place. Now, say with me, I, insert your name here, bind this place as my home. I shall protect this place in sickness and in health until death doesn't do us part and rebirths me again to die for it. Say it, and the place will say it, and the place will form a small opening, Isis said as she looked at Kai. Where'd he go? Okay.
Do I have to?
Kai asked, and the girl nodded.
I, Kai, bind this place as my home. I shall protect this place in sickness and in health until death doesn't do us part and rebirths me again to die for it, Kai said, while totally ashamed by the lines he had spoken.
Okay, now let's do seriously. Just think of opening the portal, Isis said, looking at the wolf as she laughed.
You set me up!
Kai shouted and roared at the goddess. Sorry. I just thought it would be funny. And don't get mad. I'll send it to your email later, so just check it, Isis said as she patted the dog's head. Just go and open the portal, feel the string that was attached to your dungeon core, she explained, and Kai, a bit reluctantly, did what she said. A small portal opened before him, and before he could think 250 DP. A small portal opened before him, and before he could think, 250 DP vanished, and a 250-meter square room was open. Now you have your entrance done, Isis said as she stepped into the dungeon. Come, this is your home now, she said, as if she was talking to an abandoned puppy that was adopted.
You sure are having fun here,
Kai said, as he too entered the room. I am. Anyway, let's continue the procedure. Make some light in this room. Just think of making it, and it will appear, Isis said, gesturing to the ceiling. Kai looked at her, but seeing no catch on doing it, he followed her order and did what she said. 50 DP vanished, and a small sun-like orb appeared on the top of the room. Good job! Now next, we're setting things for your minions, so you will need a food resource, though you can have them hunt. Your dungeon is still sealed, so they can't leave, Isis said. Seriously, one more. Okay. Good job. Now we're setting things Next, we're setting things for your minions, so you will need a food resource. Though you can have them hunt, your dungeon is still sealed, so they can't leave. Isis said seriously once more. Make a small den, then place some herbs here, here, and there, she said, as she pointed to some spots, and Kai followed her instructions, even though he had yet to see the point in doing so. With this done, you can summon your first small creatures. The one I want are rabbits, so make a pair and a pair of lizards, Isis said. Don't worry, at first they will not consume everything you have here, and you will be spending 2 weeks holed in here. You will need food for you and your minions, she said with a smile. Oh yeah, you will have a small resource while their population increases, so there is no need worrying about dying from hunger, she added, and Kai followed her.
Done. And I think I might not have too much DP left, Kai said as he counted what he had done.
There is no need. You see, the herbs I had you plant were the food for the rabbits and lizards. It will grow quickly, too, at first, so let's end this. Make another den at the other side of the room, Isis said, pointing at another wall. That will be the sleeping place for your minions. For now. Following that, he opened the bigger den before he sat down looking at the smiling girl.
So, I looked at my stats and I used 450 DP. Shouldn't I have found some DP boxes already?
Kai asked Isis. You're too eager. The game did not start. You're doing the tutorial, she said before flicking his head. Now summon 5 minions. Now summon 5 minions, she said with a dictator's voice. Seeing that Kai sighed and did what she ordered. 5 wild dogs appeared from 5 small magic circles that soon vanished. Good. Now you used all your points. You will be left with 3 days' worth of food. It is all in the den. And here is the prize for completing the tutorial, Isis said before she clapped her hands. It was loud, like dozens of cannons, and before he could do anything, Isis hugged him before she started petting his head. I'll miss the softness of this fur, she said, before vanishing.
What was that?
Kai asked, but found that something. And that's it. That's a weird way to end it, but okay. So that was. It's getting hot in here. Oh my god. That was Dungeon Boss something. Dungeon Boss Player, the beginning by Paul Estofel. It is available on Amazon. So yeah, if you liked what you heard there, go ahead and go pick it up. Personally, I think it needs some work, man. It's I'm pretty sure it's English as a second language. It needs some editing because it's weird. Like the narration, there's no commas at all, and in the uh, ISIS's dialogue, there's commas all over the place in places that don't make any sense. So yeah, I think this is a English as a second language issue. So if I I think that's why he's got bad ratings. So, if you can look over that, it might be an interesting story. So go check it out on Amazon. That is Dungeon Boss Player: The Beginning by Paul Estofel. So that being done, let's move on to Mr. Charles Dean's request. He's been doing these goof stories. And this one goof story, actually, I think it's just one goof story, and it's fucking hilarious. If you haven't been watching them, you will be able to find it. Excuse me. You will be able to find my readings of the first 3 parts in my in the Sound Booth Theater Live YouTube channel. You'll see the what is it called? The goof story labels in the names, or you can just check down below in the description. I've linked all 3 of the other requests only in which I read parts of Charles Dean's Goof Story. And this is just a continuation of it. Okay, so where are we? Where is
Okay, I'm having a hard time finding Charles's request. Charles, you do this to me again? Did you request some shit and not send me an email for it? Let's see here. That's not it. Goof story. Why is that? What? What is that stupid? Oh, here we go. No, that's not it. God damn it, Charles. Where's your fickin' link? Um, Sorry guys, it's taking a second. Charles does not follow instructions. Here we go. Here we go. That's chapter 1. God damn it. I don't know how to get to chapter 2. Damn it. Well, I need to maybe check Charles's Facebook messages. I'm sorry, guys. Nope. 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 Ah, man. This is really frustrating, guys. I'm very sorry. Uh, all right, maybe I'll try my other email address. Guys, I'm sorry. This is really annoying. Why did Dude, come on. I don't know where it is, guys. This pissed me off. He had one job. He really did have one job. All right, it was back in May. State jitters. Is this it? Yes. Okay, here it is. All right. It wasn't even online. That's why he sent it to me in a PDF that was named something different. Okay. All right. So if you guys don't remember what had just happened with Thomas, who I believe they changed his name to Steve, was it? Okay, there's all right, I'm going a little too far here. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start from where he starts talking to the principal because this scene is just too funny. And I just wanted to do it again. And you guys will be able to catch up a little bit more. And because this is chapter 2, and actually there's not as much to read as I thought. Um, so I just wanted to take up a little more time. But this will get you caught up. So Thomas, who came from the future, he's now living with his parents again, but they don't realize he's their son because he's from the future. And he left the future in the first place to get away from his sister because he's got a huge crush on his sister and he wanted to not be around her. But instead of going to the future like he had planned, he goes into the past instead. And now his sister is even more hot because she's younger and she's now guiding him to school for the first time. When he arrived at his parents' house again, his dad just thought he was some scientist genius and decided to hire him on the spot, and they adopted him as a part of the family. So yeah, he's completely screwed. Anyway, she's taking him to the first day of school. He's trying to keep his cool and not screw his sister, even though she's young and hot now. And now he's talking to the principal. Charles Dean, this is an amazing little thing that you're writing here. Just just so you know how much I appreciate it. Oh, cool. Blaze is sending me stuff for tonight's drinking with Charles, by the way. He had one job. Okay, so here goes.
Ah, here we are.
Michelle said as she yanked on his arm and tugged him through an open doorway into an office.
Hey, Mr. Scooter, I got fresh blood for the school.
The office was the type of large, square room with walls that couldn't decide if they wanted to be white or yellow more. It was decorated with a hodgepodge of colors that didn't match, from the light wood bookshelf to the mahogany desk to the maroon cushioned chair the principal was sitting in, and the aquamarine plastic ones available for guests. None of it matched. It was all over the place, and so disorienting that it almost made Thomas, a guy who had no design or fashion sense, want to smack whoever put it together. The only logical conclusion for these choices was if the furniture wasn't purchased, but rather accumulated from garage sales. The rotund man, apparently named Scooter, was Slaven. There were bite marks on his right collar, and it seemed like the buttons on his shirt had never been strained a day in their life, as his clothes were 2 sizes too big. Even at his monstrously large size, he still managed to find an outfit that made him look like a kid in his dad's suit. Ah, fresh meat indeed, he said, looking up from a stack of papers at Thomas and Michelle. Ripe for the butcher's block, I see. Have we gotten him sized up for cutting? Huh? What? Thomas was confused. This metaphor had gone too far, and given the hungry look in the principal's eye, he wasn't even sure it was a joke. This man's expression looked like he'd keep on eating even if Hannibal told him where the meal came from. I'm asking, he said, standing up, if you're seasoned, if you're ready to start. Seasoned? Thomas unconsciously backed up. Yeah, the man said as he walked around the table. Monstrous was an understatement. He was as big as he was rotund, and could put a certain bearded groundskeeper from a certain book about magic to shame in terms of size. Are you seasoned, boy? Or am I going to have to take care of that at the institution first? Omnirain asks, is that a little bit of Dirty Dave? No, there's no Dirty Dave sounds like this. This is Dirty Dave. Harmon actually asked me to kind of use the Joker from, what was it? Suicide Squad. That's an inspiration for him, so. Okay.
I don't think he's been seasoned.
Michelle answered for Thomas as Thomas's hand reached for the door behind him, only to find that Michelle had pulled it closed while Thomas had surveyed the workspace initially. The man paused. Yeah, definitely not seasoned. Do you think you could help him out? Do we know what courses he needs? Courses? Seasoned? Fresh meat? Thomas barely spoke the words as he went through them one by one, trying to find a better explanation for these insinuating word choices. But reason was blocked by the massiveness of the man in front of him that honestly scared him to death. Courses, of course, my boy, the man said, his hand coming down and slamming onto the side of Thomas's shoulder so hard it knocked him sideways. Why else would you come to a school but to take courses? I just heard you were a migrant orphan, so I'm trying to figure out how experienced with a school system you'll be, the man said, striking Thomas's arm again. Oh, that's what you meant. Thomas sighed in relief, even as he became painfully aware that this man's pats on the shoulder were definitely going to leave a bruise. Thomas thought real hard. I have no papers from any school, so I can't say I've been to one. But I do know exactly how they work since I actually have been to one. Then again, the ones I went to were in the future, and the system was much more advanced. I heard back when Sis went to high school, they sat in boring desks and stared at a teacher who just lectured them all day. It wasn't like my school where everything was project-oriented with rotating groups. So, yeah, maybe I don't need to lie. I don't know how your schools work at all, really. Sorry. Not at all? The man's caterpillar-sized eyebrow raised in obvious curiosity. Well, I've seen some stuff on television, but other than that, um, no? Not really at all. I'm sorry. I never had the chance to attend one. The man's eyes watered at this, and his unusually thin lips on the massive beach ball-sized face began to quiver. It's no big deal. I've done a lot to make sure I don't fall behind in my studies. I've really kept up with as much learning as a kid should have at my age. Thomas trailed off as the lips began to quiver even more, and even the caterpillar eyebrows joined in with the shaking. I promise I won't disappoint you or the school, so at this point, even Michelle did her best to help. Yeah, he's a super smart inventor. Smart enough to even work with my dad, so you don't have to. As Michelle was talking, the giant man's nose had gone red, the pools in his eyes had gotten even bigger, and finally, before Michelle could finish her thought, the dam broke. He let out a strange wail or cry as he reached both his arms and grabbed Thomas into a hug that was tight enough to break a wooden log into splinters. "Ech! Can't breathe!" Thomas wanted to say, but the lack of air prevented him. "I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. That's so awful," the big man said between sobs as saliva, tears, or snot, Thomas wasn't sure which, dripped onto his head. "Ew, ew, 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 ew! This is not okay! Please, I need air and a shower!" Thomas wanted to plead, doing his best to use his arms to try to regain enough space to breathe, but failed. "I can't believe you had to go through all of that alone, by yourself, without anyone there for you. It must have been so lonely. No wonder you studied so much. You must not have even had friends." Mr. Scooter continued to sob out over Thomas. Um, Michelle tapped Mr. Scooter on the shoulder. "I hate to interrupt this touching moment of male bonding, but I think you're going to break him. He's turning blue." At this, Mr. Scooter relented and loosened his hug enough for Thomas to fall to the ground. He didn't know when he had gone from standing on the ground to being hoisted off of it, as he was too worried about his lack of air, but he had, and now he was desperately taking in as large of breaths as possible while holding his chest. Sweet, sweet oxygen, he thought. Once he had enough of that in his lungs, he quickly rubbed his head to try and get whatever substance had fallen on his hair off of him. Tears, he thought, feeling the loose constitution and seeing the tear trails on Mr. Scooter's face. Well, tears are better than the other two alternatives, but still, Thomas felt glad he hadn't eaten much this morning. If he had stuffed himself, between the air deprivation torture and the panic over potentially being covered in actual snot, he'd have lost that meal all over himself. This whole experience was too much. "Thank you," Thomas said to Michelle, loud enough for her to hear it, but soft enough that he hoped the still crying principal wouldn't. "I wasn't sure I was going to make it." Of course you're going to make it," the principal said, having clearly heard his whisper attempt, as he threw a hand on both of Thomas's shoulders. "I'm going to make sure you're 100% taken care of from this day out. Consider me as your guarantor. I'll never let anything bad happen to you again. It's so tragic what happened to you. I can't imagine how—" "It's okay!" Thomas tried to cut off future wailing right away. "I'm fine. Everything's fine. Life is great now. No need to worry." Aw. Michelle threw Thomas a devious smile. "So it appears you won't need me after all. He can take care of all your needs for you instead." She giggled. Okay, okay. Okay. Well, you still need to take the assessment test so we can get you placed. Do you know how old you are?" Mr. Scooter asked. Of course I know how old I am. I'm 18, but an orphan who grew up without a family wouldn't." "I have a rough idea," Thomas said. "I think I'm about 18. "Well, we'll try to figure it out later. Michelle, take him to the detention room where we have a teacher ready to give him some tests. Let's figure out what grade you're in and get you set up." Mr. Scooter said with a Mr. Scooter said with a smile, the evidence of his crying having completely vanished from his face as he looked down at Thomas. "And I'm sure you've not had a good proper meal in a long time. So how about you come by my office and let's have lunch together. I'll make sure you're well fed so you grow up big and proper, and don't stay all small and puny like you are now." "Small? I'm 6 feet tall. You're the giant. Don't accuse me of dwarfism." Thomas mentally cursed as Michelle grabbed his arm and started pulling him out of the office.
It's okay, Mr. Scooter. I'll take care of his lunch. I have to make sure he's properly fed so I can eat him all up later, after all.
No more talk about eating me, Thomas said to Michelle as soon as they got into the hallway. I've had enough of that for one day.
Oh, but your face at the beginning.
Michelle cracked a wicked smile.
I couldn't stop laughing. I thought you were going to vanish or turn translucent.
Hey! Thomas frowned, but didn't say more when he saw how cute her mischievous face was. He just moped silently at his misfortune and let himself be led like a puppy on a walk as Michelle took him to the detention room. It was actually a rather empty, plain white room with rows of desk chairs that looked like they were made for middle schoolers, which surprised Thomas. Excuse me. Given the fact they needed an entire room for disciplining people, he had anticipated it having at least one miscreant.
Here we go,
Michelle said, flipping the light switch to illuminate the room.
a teacher will be in shortly with your test papers. Be sure to place in the senior year, or else I'll have to punish you.
Punish me? Thomas questioned her as he went into the room and she hung by the door.
Of course, leaving your new sister all alone. That'd make me so sad. I've been really looking forward to hanging out with you during class. See you at lunch, Tom,
She said, giving him a wink before leaving. The death of me. She'll be the absolute death of me, Thomas muttered as he watched her incredibly curvy and well-filled figure leave the room. Okay, sorry, I'm figuring out what kind of trying to figure out what kind of voice I should go with for this new character. All right, I'm going to try this one. That one, a voice said, as if answering him while walking into the room. Wouldn't surprise me, though. You wouldn't be the first man Mishi kills. She does have a charm that makes men into Icarus, after all. A neutral female, almost mannish voice said as a girl walked into the room. Is she my teacher? Thomas wondered, noting she wasn't wearing the school uniform at all. Instead, she had a bit of a tomboy look. She had sandals, loose-fitting jeans, rolled up so they stopped halfway down her calves, a white t-shirt that did nothing to hide the obvious shape of her chest, a thin, unzipped red jacket, and a pair of aviator shades to hide her eyes and push her long black hair slightly out. No, definitely not my teacher, Thomas concluded. So, the girl continued talking, what are you in here for? You don't look like the troublemaking type. Did you punch a baby in the face? Did you beat up an old lady, maybe? Did you rob a kid of his video game one board? Did you rob a kid of his video game one board before finishing? Wait, no, don't tell me. You got mixed signals from Michelle, grabbed her breasts because they were like low-hanging fruit on a tree and you couldn't help yourself. A teacher saw you and now you're facing either 1 day of detention or life in prison. If she says it wasn't consensual, you're screwed, so you have to follow her around and pray she doesn't turn you in. What? Um, no, Thomas said, but the mention of grabbing breasts reminded him of the time he actually did, the time that had incentivized him to work even harder on completing the machine, and he could feel his face flush. No! I mean, I'm not in trouble. What kind of weird world do you think we live in? Oh, the girl frowned. So she said it was consensual and you're just taking the detention hit instead of her. So she said it was consensual and you're just taking the detention hit instead of her for PDA because you're a gentleman. Or, the girl put a finger to her lips as she sat down on the desk next to him. Or maybe you took the detention for PDA instead of her, accepting all blame because she has something on you. That's it. She has some blackmail material that she's using to corner you into all sorts of inappropriate actions against your will. You curse when she leaves the room because you want freedom, but you can't escape the damning leverage she has over you. Did she lure you in, put you to sleep, then take pictures that made it look like she was taking advantage of you? Pictures she now uses to force you into acts of submission?
I bet she wears tight, black leather when she whips you, but she doesn't even let you scream, because if you do, she'll turn you over to the cops with all of her fabricated evidence. Her versus you. It's clear we know which one the cops will believe. Yeah, that sounds like Mishy, all right.
What? Thomas may have blushed even deeper at the thought of Michelle in tight black leather, a mental image he would now have to scrub clean from his brain along with the image of his dad without pants this morning. But most of the red face was from how ridiculous this scenario was.
What are you talking about? Don't accuse me of her. Don't accuse me or her of such things. I don't want people believing such preposterous rumors.
Oh my. She put a hand over her crimson lips.
I didn't realize I'd hit so close to the truth with the first guess that you'd have to deny it vehemently. Don't worry, I won't tell a soul. I don't want all that pain you must suffer as her personal slave to be for nothing.
She giggled.
It's not the truth at all. I am not her slave.
Thomas found himself getting more and more worked up as he did his best to deny these accusations.
What is wrong with you? Well, if you insist that you're not under her control.
The girl looked contemplative as the hand that was covering her mouth turned into just a single finger, with the rest of the hand resting against her chin.
Then maybe I need some proof.
Huh? Thomas, still sitting in his chair, didn't know what was coming next, but he had a serious feeling of dread.
I need proof. If you're not completely under her control, then you should be able to disobey her, right?
Thomas didn't answer one way or the other.
This is a trap,
his gut told him.
You should be able to even skip out on appointments, right?
The girl continued, leaning across the tiny side rail of the desk chair hybrid as she bared her teeth at him in a wicked grin. Where are you going with this?
Well, if you can disobey her and avoid appointments with her, then that would be proof that you're not under her thrall, wouldn't it?
The girl pressed as she managed to lean even closer to Thomas, despite the armbar between them.
Yeah, that stands to reason.
Thomas decided to play along against his better judgment.
Then you need to cancel your next appointment with her,
the girl said, throwing her chin in the air and sitting back firmly in her seat.
Do that, and I'll be convinced.
My next appointment?
Yeah, you said you were going to have lunch with her. Don't show up to it, I'll buy your story, she said, a look of victory on her face. Or I can just tell everyone the truth. I work at the school paper, after all. I'd love to do a printout of your twisted relationship with the Mishy doll.
I Thomas facepalmed. I don't need this bad publicity when I'm just trying to blend in, but I also don't care what others think, he thought, getting ready to deny the whole thing. But then he realized, wait, avoiding my sister is the goal, and this would get me out of even more FaceTime with her. I agree, he said, sticking out his hand for a shake. That would prove it. I'm in. Excuse me. Excellent. She turned to face him again, grabbing his hand in less than a second. And, to make sure you don't go back on our agreement, I'll need to have lunch with you instead. That way, I can monitor you the entire time and make sure you don't cheat out on our deal. Thomas blinked. What? Well, how else will I be certain that you don't renege on our test and go running off to spend time with her in secret somewhere? I'll need to keep line of sight with you at all times. This way, I know you're not cheating. Are you asking me out on a date? Thomas, who had previously been caught up in her ludicrous accusations, was now laughing at the silliness of the whole thing. Are you serious? Why didn't you just come right out and say, I want to take you to lunch? Thomas chuckled. This was by far the silliest way he'd ever been asked out to lunch in his life. Granted, other than Jesse from his own time and Michelle insisting they eat together today, he'd never actually been asked to have lunch with someone, much less on what felt like a first day of school date. Much less on what felt like a first day of school date. What? Now it was her turn to act exasperated and indignant.
How dare you, sir? I'm a respectable journalist merely pursuing the truth. A date? With someone I've just met? Now that, my good sir, is preposterous.
Okay. Let me try this again because there's a little bit of extra direction here.
How dare you, sir? I'm a respectable journalist merely pursuing the truth. A date with someone I've just met? Now that, my good sir, is preposterous.
Her voice went from normal to high and mighty proper downtown Abbey style British. I'm just saying, if you really feel like going on a date, you could have just asked. I'd easily have said yes. You're quite pretty, Thomas blurted out, lacking the social graces to know that this type of compliment was generally not appropriate. Normally, he'd have choked before ever getting these words out. Quinn, his first girlfriend, had been such an awkward case that he didn't even get up the nerve to make out with her until the ninth date, and she was so cold he had had to be the one to insist on every single dating spot. But, with how flustered and worked up her story and blaming had made him, he forgot all about his usual shyness and lack of tact and just blurted out the first thing he thought of as his brain reveled in relief over how silly this issue actually was.
Hey, watch yourself, newcomer. I already told you it's not like that,
She protested, turning away from him. But Thomas could see her cheeks turning even redder. It ignited a sadistic bone in his body, and he started wanting to play with her a bit. Whatever you say, dear, but if you were just a little more honest, we could move that lunch up and into. Whatever you say, dear, but if you were just a little more honest, we could move that lunch up and into a dinner, he said, smiling honestly for the first time this morning. Being asked out by a beautiful and quirky girl before he had even taken his first test or seen his first teacher, this was a record, and a great boost for his self-confidence.
I told you, it's just research, and I just need to prove.
She stopped mid-sentence. Thomas didn't know why at first, but it became clear when he saw light from the hallway dance across their faces as the door opened again. So, let's see what we have here, a gruff voice said as a short yet lanky man walked through the door. One Mr. Richard? The scruffy 5 o'clock shadowed man frowned as he looked on the page, quickly turning on the next page. Richard with no last name, I see. And question marks again. You know, this is the third time this month.
What can I say? I like to make trouble.
Question marks shrugged, leaving Thomas to wonder what type of chaos she was causing besides being terrible at asking someone for a date. Well, you know what to do. I expect better from you this time than last time, he said, walking up to her desk and dropping a stack of 30 papers on it. I don't want to keep seeing you in here every week. I won't let you down, Chief, she shrugged again, pulling out a pencil and going to town. What's up, Ray Johnson? Good. And learn how to clothe yourself properly. Our school has a dress code for a reason. You look like a San Francisco urchin one guitar short of a street performance. I don't care if you are the top student in your class. If you keep testing out of college courses every week with me, you still need to learn how to carry yourself and dress for success. Oh, she's not in trouble? Thomas thought, and the question must have been visible enough that question marks read it off his facial expression and answered right away.
Yeah, I'm just here this week to try and test out of advanced calculus so I don't have to pay money in college to take it again, she answered.
Oh, Thomas nodded to himself. And as for you, Mr. Richard Homeless, I hear great things. Don't disappoint me either, he said, dropping a giant stack of test papers in front of him. You've already got yourself a smart girlfriend in question marks. Now prove that strategic move wasn't just dumb luck.
I'm not his.
Silence! No talking during tests! The gruff man stopped question marks' protest immediately, slamming a ruler on her desk so hard that it snapped in two and the broken half shot across the room, bouncing off the wall. Don't make me repeat myself! They both, having gone from cheerful and relaxed to scared, gulped and nodded. He could tell from question marks' shock that the teacher was not usually this strict. Perhaps since she was always the only one in the room on a Monday, he usually didn't have to quiet her. Okay, let's do this, Thomas thought, flipping to the first page of the test, prepared to make sure he ended up in question mark and Michelle's grade now. Your eyes are like a big brown moon. Big like a moon, beautiful and brown. Let's mix these up and make it sound awful. Okay, so I think what this is Charles not being finished writing it. So, but that's it. That's it for chapter 2, and that'll be it for our Sound Booth Theater Live requests only. So, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us. Let's see. I think I have 4 out of 5 people have requested. 4 out of 5 codes are being given away. Let's see. Do, 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 do. All right, Durzo gets one. James Lee gets one. OmniRain gets one. Richard Lietzau gets one. And I think that's it. So, only giving out 4 audiobooks today, but thank you guys for requesting them. I'm gonna keep track of everybody here. All right, I think I saw Richard Lietzau on Facebook. The people that I don't know. Let's see. Paste everyone's name here in a list so I don't forget. No, that's not it. Okay. All right, Richard Lietzau. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Richard. OmniRain. So, I don't know who you are, OmniRain, and there's a couple more of you. I'm not familiar with your screen names here. Durzo, I believe you quested something. Litzo. Okay. And yeah, so if you guys if you could please go post in the Sound Booth Theater Live Facebook group, you will be able to find that link to our Facebook group in the you'll be able to find the link to our Facebook group in the description below. If you go there, you join the group, you make a post on in the group telling me, "Hey, I want a code," then I'll be able to find you easier. So please do that to help me out so I can give you your code. And that's it for today's show. So if you want to stick around for, let's see, in an hour and a half, Drinking with Charles is going to start with Blaze Corvin, Dakota Kraut, myself, and of course, Charles Dean. And we're going to be getting drunk and playing Fate. And I think that Blaze actually has a pre-made module that we're going to be playing with so that we can actually get used to the system. I've never played Fate. I have the guidebook, so I'll be skimming through that a little bit before we get started, so I have some idea of what we're doing. And yeah, hopefully this will become a regular thing. If you guys come and hang out, if you guys bring more people to it, please do that. Then we get an audience, people have a good reaction, then we'll keep going every 2 weeks, I believe. So okay, OmniRain's going to be there, and be sure to go to Charles Dean's YouTube channel and go subscribe to that so that you'll get notifications whenever we do any more Drinking with Charles. I'm really excited for this. I haven't done role playing in a long time. I actually, well, no, a few months ago I did go play D&D at this bar once. And that was really fun. But I'm even more looking forward to playing this role playing game with people that I know. Um, so yeah, come drink with us, come watch us be play drunken role playing, and I will see you later tonight. Thanks again, guys.